And let's make Mr. Tyrone here a co-host. So welcome, my friend. How are you, man?
Hey, thanks for having me again.
You and I meet always virtually, and one of these days we will meet. I will bring you to Colombia. We will be there. Nice international.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
I know. Me too, man. Next 2022 we'll be back live in Latin America. Yeah. So what are you gonna?
Remember, I did tell you I did go to a Festival de Flores maybe
I know,
4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. A bad place to go. So what are you going to talk to us about?
We are going to talk about IPv6. I'm going to give you the quick and dirty, for the 25-30 minutes.
So do we really need IPv6?
Hey, I always say, I'm not here to fight that battle. I've been fighting that battle for 10 years, trying to convince you. If you don't want to do it.
Remember that warning. You only have one more address for all of Colombia. And you're like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And 12 years later, we still have only one address left.
For sure. I mean, there's definitely going to be some pushback everywhere,
And last thing, and I know a lot of us watching this, I've learned IPv6 at least 6 times. Every time I had to take one of those Cisco CCNX exams.
For sure.
And I passed. I taken the CCNP like 2 or 3 times, and I've always learned IPv6, and I never used it. So I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one, and so I'm looking forward to this this presentation because security was very big as part of the IPv6. So I appreciate that, Tyrone.
Sure thing. I'll start off by saying you have been using it.
I know. We just didn't know about it.
Okay.
All right, buddy.
For sure. I want to thank you all for having me. Once again, I am Tyrone Wilson, the founder and CEO of IPv6 Solutions. I have been in IT almost 25 years. I joined right out of high school in 1996. I started a information security consulting and training company where we do a lot of contested prep, SOC analyst workshops. We talk IPv6, of course. I also organize a meetup group called the DC Cybersecurity Professionals, and giving back to the community, giving these talks, spreading as much knowledge as I possibly can. It has always been a passion of mine. So I have 2 things that I try to remember to do, and that is to motivate, challenge, and inspire everyone. And then my teaching style is a teach you, show you, involve you style. So you'll see me talk about some things, and then I'll show you some things, and then I'll challenge you to kind of repeat what I just did. And then, in your own free time, study more, learn more, and take it beyond what I'm about to show you in these next 20 minutes, right? So remember that we're all on a journey, right? Be supportive of everyone. Some of the things that we are going to talk about today may get you in trouble. Do not get yourself thrown in jail, right? Get comfortable being uncomfortable. It's going to be challenging and it's going to be worth it. Remember, everything you've ever wanted in life is on the other side of hard, right? So push through. It'll be worth it in the end, right? So what is it? The quick and dirty is it is a protocol or a language that was created to address the lack of IPv4 addresses. If you're unfamiliar with IPv4, open up a terminal, type in ipconfig or ifconfig, you'll see an IPv4 address, right? With the current scheme, 2 to the 32, there's only about 4 billion options. But we know with the amount of devices that are being produced in the world, cars, radios, appliances, home devices, we're going to run out of We are out of IPv4 addresses. We're done. So the IPv6 protocol was created over 25 years ago, right? So it's old enough to run for Congress. You have been running IPv6, whether you know it or not, since Windows Vista. So by default, it has been running. There will be people that will have some pushback and they'll use NAT, but I can tell you that NAT breaks end-to-end encryption, and IPv6 enthusiasts kind of love to have that battle with people that are pushing back. It is not backward compatible. So just like being bilingual, just like having two languages, IPv4 and IPv6, they cannot speak to one another without some type of tunneling mechanism or some type of translation mechanism. It's like being able to speak Spanish and being able to speak English, and your grandmothers cannot speak to each other unless you translate for them, right? So it's just like that. There's over 30 something translation mechanisms or tunneling mechanisms, and you will need a device that will be able to detect them all in order to identify the tunneling IPv6 attacks, right? We're only going to get into a little bit of it today. Also, speaking of pushback, Microsoft highly recommends that you do not try to turn IPv6 off. As a matter of fact, try to disable it, they will not support you. There is an option to prefer IPv4 over IPv6. So think of IPv6 as every road, highway, street, path you have ever been on. Imagine there's another one right underneath it that not too many people know about, right? So streets are a lot cleaner, security, they're not gonna mess with you and harass you that much, but it is a very noisy protocol. We will talk about why, and it's because it needs to be, right? So the current adoption rate, right now, I think I took this morning, we are at over 35% right now. So 1 in every 3 people on the internet are using IPv6. There's also a chart to track the adoption rate by country. A couple things I want to mention is some of the ICMP v6 types. And remember, I said that the protocol was really noisy, and it's because, you know, it has to be. With so many devices, the protocol needs to be able to identify the fastest route from one IPv6 device to the next IPv6 device. And there's a few ways that it goes about doing that. Of course, there is the pings, right? Echo requests and echo replies. And just think of the IPv6 protocol as similar to IPv4, but with, you know, I guess a more updated version. So if you have ICMP, you'll have ICMP v6, you have DHCP, you have DHCP v6, and so forth, right? You also have router solicitations and router advertisements, basically saying like, who's my router, right? I'm your router, right? So on the IPv6 side, there are some tricks with some tools. Any host can act as the DHCP v6 server and issue IP addresses, IPv6 addresses. So you're gonna see a tool, provided we have time, do that later on. So if you don't have the proper security in place, such as like RA guard, it's called RA guard, router advertisement guard. It's similar to only accepting DHCP addresses from the DHCP server, then any host will be able to issue you IPv6 addresses and get away with it. The next one is, the next set is the neighbor solicitations and the neighbor advertisements. Essentially, these devices are basically saying, who's my neighbor, I'm your neighbor, I'm your neighbor. And these neighbor tables get filled up rather quickly, and it's because that needs to happen so you can get the fastest route to the next device. Because there are so many different options, 340 undecillion options, if it were a flat network, then obviously the things that you would do in IPv4, you won't be able to do in IPv6. For example, if you were to run an IMAP scan on a /24 or on the entire internet if you want it. It would take, what, 4.5 to 6 minutes to accomplish that, right? If you were to, try to scan a /64 in IPv6, because there are so many options, the scan will not finish in your lifetime. So without any scripting tools, you're not allowed to scan IPv6 networks, like with ACIDR notation. But there are workarounds for that. IPv6 has unicast, multicast, and anycast. And we'll just focus on the multicast right now. So the multicast is just one address sending probes to a group of addresses. And IPv6 has the option for you to communicate with groups. Some of the more popular groups are the all nodes group and the all routers group. There's a lot more, but these are the ones that I like to focus on. Essentially, the all nodes group is everyone that is on the local segment. And by local segment, I mean every host between you and the very first router, right? So on your home network, you can easily identify how many devices are on your network simply by pinging the all nodes group. And if you don't have security in place, right, you may have security in place to not respond to pings or to block pings. But remember, that is ICMP, not ICMP v6. And ICMP v6 is one of the most targeted protocols out there, because that's how you're able to get a lot of the information. Well, that's how the devices share information back and forth. Moving forward, some of the tools that are out there and that you'll see today. Of course, at your own terminal, ipconfig if you're on a Windows machine, ifconfig if you're on a Linux machine. And what you want to do is you want to try to identify what your IPv4 address is, what your link local IPv6 address is. That is the address that will have a prefix of FE80. So it'll say FE80 : something. That FE80 address has been there for the last 25 years. So imagine you have a home, right, where every place you've lived, you have a front door, and then there's another door that's just off to the side that you kind of see, quite often, but you never really open it to check and see what's inside of it. I'm telling you that your devices, your operating systems, since Windows Vista, it's been there. So I have been able to ping, IMAP scan, browse your machine over IPv6 for 2 decades now. IPv6 is even preferred on the internet. So if you're familiar with DNS, you have an A record, which points to an IPv4 address for a website. And you have a quad A record, because remember, IPv6 is 4 times the address space of IPv6 is 4 times the address space of IPv4. So you have a quad A record, which points to your IPv6 address on the website. So on the internet, whenever you put a website in your browser, it's going to look for the quad A or the IPv6 address first. You can ping 6. I don't think it really matters what command you use in Windows, right? It will accept both. You can use the host command, right, from your terminal, any terminal. A really cool one is to do a host www.facebook.com, and it will display Facebook's IPv4 address and Facebook's IPv6 address. you'll see it's really cute that Facebook actually puts the word Facebook in their address. And because you're able to use numerals 0 through 9 and hex A through F is what allows you to have so many options for IP addresses. We talked about the web browser. One of my favorites is to use Wireshark to detect IPv6 activity. I have listed already the ICMPv6 types to focus on, right? 134, 135, 136, 133. So it's good to open up Wireshark and just look at some of the activity that is on your home network in your lab. I always talk about the importance of building a lab. There's some netsh commands, which is Windows proprietary commands that will let you know about different IPv6 interfaces, the status of those interfaces. If you want to create some, and with Scapy, be very, very careful. But if you want to craft some custom IPv6 packets to see how your firewall will react to those packets, you can most definitely do that. I mentioned Recon, and I'm going to talk about IPv6. So the demo portion is to show you a little bit of these tools with the limited time that we have left, so you can actually see what I'm talking about. If you would like some extra practice, right, you can go and check out the IPv6 header format and also take a look at some IPv6 extension headers, right? The place I would start is by looking at RFC 8200. Again, RFC 8200, that is a really, really good place to start. It will tell you all you need to know. That's not enough. Follow some of my IPv6 peeps, my IPv6 tweeps on Twitter. I do have a public, I do have a public list on Twitter, so you can follow them. A lot of these folks are listed there, and educational references. I would start with the Packet Pushers IPv6 Buzz podcast, really, really great, and some of the books, IPv6 Essentials, IPv6 for Windows Administrators, and IPv6 Security. Boom. So that's the quick and dirty. That's the teach you part. Now it is the show you part. Again, so you don't need to see me anymore. We want to see the screen, right? So in that, I'm going to show you my Kali Linux machine so you can see what I am talking about. All right, there we go. We should be looking at my Kali Linux.
Yep, we see it. And we just saw your password. Beautiful.
All right, so there's a couple of things that I have set up here, just so you can see. One is the terminal to my Windows machine. So if I just type in ipconfig there, you can see that I have my IPv4 address here. I have my link local IPv6 address there. Both of these IPs will work. My machine is bilingual. That's a try-hack-me room that I'm connected to. The suite of tools on Kali Linux, they are installed by default in the user bin. They have, over 30 different tools that you can use to take advantage and attack the IPv6 protocol. The very first one that I'm going to use is going to be a ATK6 alive 6 dash. You need to tie it to an interface that has the IPv6 address. And what this tool does is it pings the all nodes group, and then any host that is on the current network will reply. right? So very quickly, instead of scanning a /24 or instead of doing a ping sweep like you would normally do in Nmap, I simply ping the all nodes group, and very quickly I can see that I have 6 systems up and running. There is a patch that you will need to run in Nmap to get it to scan link local IPv6 addresses. But if you wanted to scan something on the internet, you can do a Nmap-6. We'll just do this really quick. We'll do a scamming.nmap.org. Right, and you can see very quickly it went and identified scamming.nmap.org's public IPv6 address, which normally starts with a 2600 or 2000 something, and we were able to identify some of the open ports. Now, if you're in Wireshark and you have no idea what IPv6 traffic looks like, then I just got away with scanning your website. So let's try this host command. So we'll do the host scamming.nmap.org. And you can see the host command shows me the IPv4 address and the IPv6 address. Remember, we are bilingual. Another cool tool that I want to show that I like to use quite often is the detect new IPv6 tool. And what this tool does is it looks for IPv6 devices that are joining the network. So what I'll do is I'll run a sudo atk6 detect new IP6 eth0. And then what I'll do on the other side is I will just simply reboot my Linux machine. So what I like to do on my engagements is I like to come in early, be the first one to come in, and as people are turning on their machines, logging in, and joining the network, you know, they will do a router advertisement, right? Saying, hey, who's my router? This is my information. And then this tool will pick that up for me. It's also good to see at what point your machines are joining the network. You know what? I'll start my Windows machine too. So while this is going, I am going to run one more tool because of the allotted time. I'm going to bring up my Wireshark so you can see how I would detect this. You see my Wireshark right now or no?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, so it's good to have different profiles. Okay, so this Windows 10 machine on the right just rebooted, and I'm able to detect the associated IPv6 addresses that it has. Really quick, it's really good to have an IPv6 profile in Wireshark. So when you get things running, you can quickly revert to your display filters that will detect just IPv6 traffic. I have one for the neighbor solicitations, which is ICMPv6 type 135, one for neighbor advertisements, and one for router advertisements. Right, so you can very quickly see who's talking to who and things of that nature. One last thing before we shut down, right? And that is going to be all right, so right now, if I type in ipconfig, you'll see my current IP addresses that I have. There is another tool, a DOS tool called, it is ATK 6 flood underscore router 6 ETH0. And you need to be careful with these, right? So I'm gonna run it and then I'm gonna press Control C really quick, because as you can see, each dot is 1,000 packets. So I just flooded the network with 4,000 router advertisements. Now, what does that mean for all of the hosts that are on the network? So what that means is if I type in ipconfig again here on my Windows machine, it may take a little while. This Windows machine just accepted all of those random IP addresses that this Kali Linux machine just put out. And because I mentioned that we're all bilingual, we have multiple IP addresses, I can now use any one of these IPv6 addresses to run an nmap scan on your machine. Now, this is me just flooding the network with random IPv6 addresses. Imagine if I scripted it so I already knew what IPv6 address you're gonna get. My other favorite tools on here are the to flood the network with neighbor advertisements and neighbor solicitations. And that is because on your machines, you'll have a neighbor table, which essentially tells you who your closest neighbor is. And as I mentioned, that is the way for you to find the best route. But if your neighbor tables are flooded with random IPv6 addresses, it could essentially mess up your routes. So that was the quick and dirty. If you have any, yeah,
that was great. What I was going to say is to everyone that's just first starting with, in the industry, this is the way that you're going to learn. I mean, you have to get your hands dirty. When I first started, we didn't have all these virtual labs. It was a pain. I mean, there's no excuse nowadays, right? To to set up a lab. It's very simple. It's very easy. Don't you offer a virtual lab access, or you offer?
Yes, we do.
Right.
We do.
Exactly. Exactly. How do people can reach?
Sure thing. I'm at TyWilson21 on all social media platforms. You should be able to see it in my name.
Beautiful.
Right now, my DMs are always open. I'm here for you all. Thank you all for having me. If you have any questions, please reach out. If I can't answer it, I know a couple people who can.
Definitely reach out to Tyrone. And again, if you're just starting out, you have to spend the time, get your hands dirty. Wireshark is your friend. And that's what's going to get you moving forward. There's Ming.